everybody. I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Z Garcia.
And I'm Mike Delisio.
Today we're reviewing Monumental Duel Exploration, Monumental Duel Espionage, and Monumental Duel Trade. What? Everyone gets a game.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And I think we're holding them, in my opinion, let's just put it right out there from the beginning, going from left to right as you watch us in my highest of the three.
Oh, I 100% agree on that.
You like that one the best?
Yep. This second best, that least of
Okay.
the three.
Okay.
Here's the thing, though. These are essentially the same game.
Yes.
So this is based on Monumental. I know. We'll come back and talk about that in a little bit later.
Yeah.
It's based on a bigger Monumental game.
Right.
It's a two-player game, 1 versus 1. And then, like I said, it's the same game in each one, but then there's a different module that can be inserted into that. Each of these has that module. But they each come with 3 different leaders, civilizations.
Yeah.
And you can mix and match those
Right.
as you want. And in fact, you could even, if you want to, and I probably never will, take some cards from the basic decks
Right.
and mix them up. But anyway.
Yeah, you can do that.
So how does the base game work? Can you tell us?
I will do that.
Here we're taking a look at the common setup area that denotes the deck, some cards, these stacks of cards, as well as these exploration locations here, and one player's area. So that would be these cards, the 3x3, my own cards over here, my deck, as well as my leader and my scout. My opponent across the table from me would also have a 3x3 area like this with their own cards, their own leader and scout, and the rest of the deck that is going to replenish this 3x3 as it is emptied out. So let me talk about a couple of basic concepts first. Resources. There are these 3 resources: production, science, and military. You are going to be producing these things and spending it during your turn, but you cannot carry them over from round to round. Again, production, science, and military. There are 2 more that you do carry over from round to round, and that would be gold, and this is culture. You're going to be spending those for various other resources, or various other actions, I should say, but you can hang on to them. And in fact, we begin with 2 gold already. This is also our start player marker here. It's going to go back and forth between us. The game is going to be over when this deck here is not enough to replenish, and we are going to score for a few different things in the game. Mainly, you're going to get 2 victory points for every wonder you have completed. These are the wonders here. They have that white bar at the top. You are going to be getting victory points for every cultural policy, 2 victory points. That would be these right here. You're going to be spending culture to put these out. You're going to be getting 1 victory point for every knowledge card. Knowledge cards are these blue cards right here, and every one of them will be 1 victory point, and you're going to be getting 1 victory point for every province that you have, and they are these cards right here. You also have bonuses for dominance, meaning having the most of that. And if there's a tie, then everybody's going to get that bonus. Besides all of that, there's also this card right here that is going to point at one player or the other, and that is going to be the advantage. And you can take the advantage, and various things are going to be based on having the advantage, which I'll get into in just one moment. So let's go ahead and take a look at how a round works. Every round in the game is going to have 3 phases: city activation, taking actions, going back and forth between the players, and then lastly, end of the round. So city activation denotes picking a row and a column and triggering everything in there. So for example, for me, I might say I'm going to do my middle column and my bottom row, and I would turn all of those things sideways to denote they have been activated. Any cards that give me some resource at the top, I am going to take that right now. So in this case, I'm getting 1, 2, 3 of these production symbols, and I am getting 1 and 2 of the military symbols. I would just make a little pool of that for myself. You'll also notice these knowledge cards. Every time they come out, you put another card on top of them. So I've also activated that. So I have basically both of these cards activated, taking the same spot in the 3x3. And my opponent would do that as well after I've done it. I'm the start player, so I pick and then they pick. And now we go into taking actions. There's a bank of actions here. It has quite a few of them, but I'm going to go ahead and show you what they all do. They are generally fairly straightforward. So we begin from the top where you acquire a development or a basic building. That would be going over here and shopping, okay? These are going to be set. There's an entire deck of cards that are all the same. So you can always rely on those. They have a cost across the bottom, and they are going to, all 4 of these, have a cost in production. So I could spend 2 production, buy an archery range, I take the card, I put it on top of my deck. These are generally the same thing, except the costs might be different. I could pay military to acquire one of these provinces, and I put it aside in its own province pile. I could buy a knowledge, and that'll go right on top of the deck. Or I could acquire a wonder, and that is going to be set aside. I can only work on 1 wonder at a time, and you can see here 2 steps. The first step is acquiring the wonder. The second step is completing that wonder, and that's its own action, completing a wonder. So that is a couple of the different actions you can take: acquiring, completing a wonder. Developing a cultural policy lets you take a look at your policies over here, that these are tied to your civilization, and then spending culture tokens, of which I don't have any, but they would look like this, in order to put one of these into play. The very first one I choose and put into play is going to cost me 1 culture. The second one is going to cost me 2, and it would cover this ability on the card. So the idea being, there's an activated one-time ability across the bottom, and then an ongoing ability above that. As I put out my second one, I'm going to trigger both of these one-time abilities, but I have changed the active ability, the one I may choose to trigger, and so on. The third one would be 3, and so on. And again, these are worth victory points at the end of the game. So that's another action I can do, is I can develop one of my cultural policies. I can choose to make scientific progress. In order to do that, I would spend 2 of these science tokens, of which I had 1 roll away. I can use 2 of these, I spend them, and then I draw the top card from my deck, I activate it, I get whatever it gives me here, whatever it does, and then it simply gets discarded. I can take the advantage if I want to. That would entail spending as many as I want of the same kind of resource, putting them on the advantage, and pointing that towards me. During the third and final step of the round, after actions back and forth between the players after we've both passed, this is going to cool down by 1, basically. One of them will go away, and when there are none, it'll go back to center, pointing at neither player. But my opponent is allowed to take it away from me by paying more than I have. If they pay, say, 3 military, they could take this away from me. They would point it at them with 3 military sitting on that card, and they would have the advantage. You could conquer an opponent's province. If they have a province in front of them, like this, I could pay enough and conquer it away from them. They'll be aware. Some cards let them make this harder to do, such as the barricade, for example. If they have a barricade, it's going to be this cost plus this defense for me to take away one of these provinces from my opponent, but that's also one of my actions. And then lastly, I can use a card. This can be many different kinds of cards, but basically I can use my leader, and I put a token, and I do the ability. I can use a card I've activated to do whatever it lets me do. In this case, pay 1 basic resource to gain a gold. I could do that. I could use my newest card here to activate its triggered ability. And I can even use my scout. Now what the scout does is tied to whatever module I happen to be playing. Right now we are looking at the exploration box for Monumental Duel, which has to do with these 3 exploration cards. And so using my scout, while it only says use your scout here, is different based on which box you are playing out of or which module you're choosing to play. In exploration, you'll do this. In trade, you'll engage in trading. In espionage, you'll be dealing with that module. And I'm not going to be showing you those 2. I'm going to stick with this one. But basically, in this one, you're going to pay some amount of tokens here. You're going to be drawing cards equal to the difficulty of the stage plus 1 more card per token you spent. And you look at all that, and you get to trigger 1. So if I spend 5, let's say, and we are in the second stage. This will come up later as we get to some later cards in here. Once we get to there, then we are in the second stage. I pay 5. This costs 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll look at all 3 of these, and I'll activate one of them. These cards are going to sometimes stay in play, and they'll be worth a victory point. Sometimes they say to discard them, and if you don't have it, then it's not worth a victory point, though normally those have slightly more powerful effects. Once both players have passed, we're going to do a little cleanup. We are going to discard all of these cards that were activated, and we are going to replenish our 3x3 by flipping cards from the tops of the decks, like so. And then we pass the star player token. We'll clean up a few other things. You cannot keep these. And then we do it again. This continues back and forth, replenishing this, having it all happen until the end game is triggered. We're going to figure out our victory points, and of course, whoever has the most victory points is the winner of the game.
So there's 3 modules that come with this game, and that might determine, like, if you're buying it, which one to buy. The exploration one has a little bit of push your luck. You're flipping through cards to find them. The trade has a bit of area control is probably the best way I would put it.
Yeah.
And espionage, you want to make your opponent sweat. It's the most take that of them.
Right. And it's in the, I mean, when you hear espionage, you think, yeah, someone's trying to see my stuff, get my stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, you've not played Monumental.
No, I
the
haven't.
base game. And me and Mike have been pushing you to play it.
Yep.
I retract that because this is essentially the same game without the big board and all the miniatures. And in fact, somebody was telling me, was it you? Go ahead and tell me again.
Yeah. Essentially, this was the game as it was presented to the publisher years ago.
Oh, okay.
And, it became a larger Kickstarter kind of a thing. And,
Okay.
and I'm not saying that wasn't in there from the beginning, but you have played Monumental, essentially, is what Tom and I are telling you. The core of the game is this. It's the card-driven play. The troops on a map aspect was there, and it was somewhat important, but it's all been abstracted through cards here. And so you're getting the same experience in this box size.
Interesting.
Essentially.
Okay.
Yeah, and to that end, I'm not sure. I'm still talking about how I'm going to put this in the Dice Tower library. Do I put in everything? Everything won't fit in one box. 2 boxes will fit in one for sure. But I don't know about all 3 won't fit in one.
I got all 3 in one, but you can't sleeve cards. You can't do any
You
of
got
that
all
stuff.
3 in one?
Yeah, the decks will fit.
Yeah, but I want to bag my stuff.
Yeah,
and all.
you may have to.
But
yeah.
I'll tell you, I do
It's
like
tight.
the fact that you can take the leaders back and forth. As
Yes.
I looked at the leaders, and they do not feel particularly tied to a module.
No.
So that's not a big deal. But the decks, the base, the era cards and things,
Yeah, 1, 2, and
Discovery
3. Yeah.
Days.
those are tied to modules
Yes.
sometimes. So I would not, even though you could build your deck, it feels like so much work. I would never bother to do it.
I don't think it's necessary, right? Because so many of the decks have the same base cards. You're buying the same kind of base buildings, and then the asymmetry comes with the market that either side can get from. You know what I mean? There are certain things that will be unique to your civilization, especially, your warlord and maybe your scout or whoever the second character might be. But
Your scout really is just a way to interact with
Right.
the module.
That's really
which
what
I
it
do
is.
like that. I don't know.
I do
Again, I
too.
haven't played Monumental. I don't know if that's present in that bigger game, but I do like that in this one. You are your warlord. That's who represent. You represent, and then the scout is a gateway to whatever module you
Yes.
chose to plug into the game.
Right.
And I think that's a pretty slick way to do that.
It is, and just as a little bit more background to you and to anyone watching that has not played Monumental, this kind of rule set replicates the updated rules that they made for Monumental, because originally the rules was that each player would take their entire city turn. They'd do all of their actions, and then the other player would, and that led to a lot of complaints about downtime and things
Sure.
like that, and rightfully
Wait, I
so.
did not even know these rules have been updated.
Absolutely. Like, actually, for over a year, the designer, Matthew Dunstan, came up with a way to play it, which became what this is. Basically, you've got your little action tokens, and everyone's taking an action at a time, so there's not so much downtime between the players. And so this is really kind of showing you what that updated rule set is.
To that end, by the way, I really enjoy the back and forth actions is really good, especially when you bring in that dominance card.
Yeah.
What a funky little auction type thing that's kind of, I'll just throw 1 on it, but then I'll lose it next turn. Or I'm even offering maybe you the possibility to throw 2 on it,
Sure.
Right.
which means not only are you beating me, now you have it for 2 turns,
Right.
unless I put 2 on next turn. And it doesn't affect the game in a huge way, but sometimes enough. I'm like, if you have dominance, these cards work now.
Because that's how you play
Yeah.
your warlord, right? Is by having the initiative, and that's something that is completely new to this system. That was not in Monumental.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I thought that was interesting too. The idea of it decaying at the end of every round, your influence, your control. If you don't reassert that influence, it slowly decays and you lose that power. I thought that was very clever. Thematically, it works. It comes across cleanly.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
What did you think about the base? Put out the 9 graded card, you activate a row and a column.
It's fine. It's so incredibly abstracted. I think it's a decent way to simulate. I don't always have access to everything my country, my nation, my village can produce. So I thought that worked out well. I don't like the fact that the card graphic design, because the cards represent different things, they keep changing where things are on me. So it's like the cost is always in the bottom right corner, but then like the title of a location and whatever they're called, that's at the bottom of the place.
Lands, I didn't
with
like
a
that
big
either.
map at the top.
Yeah.
And then when you're sorting out the deck, it says 1, Statue of Liberty, or 3, Statue of Liberty. That's in a different place based on what card type it is.
Yeah.
I thought the graphic design was slick and a little busy.
It's not the most user friendly.
Yeah.
It's as you get the game out of the box, it can be confusing. And this is from someone who's played Monumental many, many, many times.
Sure.
It still took me a while to get the cards even sorted correctly to be like, okay, this is what they're referring to here. This. So I agree with that. It probably is not the best UI that it could have had. And the lands, I agree. There had to be some way to replicate combat on a map, right? And so that's really what that's doing, because you can also attack the other player's lands too.
Right.
Right. I think that was the way they basically essentially got rid of the board, because on that main board it was really just troops that you would have combat with, or your explorers, which are essentially, I guess the scouts now. So
Yeah, you would run and there would be a little bit of combat. And
Yeah.
just like the base game, like Monumental, there's not a. I mean, sometimes you'll take your opponent's thing, but it doesn't happen very often.
I guess for me, and again, I haven't played the original, but abstracting it to cards you put in a little pile in front of you across from the table from me means I'm not really thinking about it very much. I know there are rules to go over there and spend the combat it cost you, plus if you have any defenses added up on top of that to take it. But I'm not looking at a map where I see my troops mounting at your doorstep or vice versa. And I think it does lose a little thematic flavor from that.
I think it's very civilization driven. So like
Sure.
in this one, the expansion, I think the Norse, basically the Vikings, are in there, and their cards are specifically set up to give you points if you raid the other players. So if that's your civ, then then you're going to do that. But I agree, if that's not the driving force of your civilization, you may do that only if it's like, oh, well,
I
it's
do
the
it
best
when
thing I
there's
can
not
do.
a new land for me to get. I'm
Right,
like,
right.
I have military. What do you got?
Yeah,
That's
basically.
basically when I do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like the card system in Middle. I think it's interesting when you buy cards. I love that you put them on the top of the
Yeah, I
deck.
agree.
And I'm thinking, okay, I know exactly where that card is going to go now. And I also love the science card, which is sort of an upgrade to your card. That's pretty nifty. But what I love, I think, the most about this game are the culture cards.
Yeah.
I love having those 5 cards, thinking, I'm not going to activate all 5 of these. I never have, probably never will. I think I got 4 once.
Right.
But still, you're saying, which one of these? I want that bonus, but also I have this special ability. But I might activate another culture card next turn. So I'm only going to have that ability for this turn. And they're all very different. It's the most unique thing between the different. I just love those culture cards.
You want all of them, basically, is the issue, is that they're all great cards. Sometimes situationally, one will be more advantageous than another.
That's
but-
the idea, right?
Yeah.
When do you trigger it? And then you cover up the old one, but you still trigger that one-time bonus on everything. So the later you add one to your stack, the more costly it is. but then the more sort of a big oomph you get, and then that static ability you can choose to trigger. Yeah, that's fun. That's just fun. It makes you unique.
Now, this did remind me of something that I don't like that the game does, graphic design-wise. You mentioned the lands and things, but I also some of the wording on the cards. They use conjunctions. They'll say, do this or do this and this. And I'm like, well, you used an or at the beginning and an and at the end.
Right.
So do I get to do the first two to do the second? There was just a couple times, and it's on one of the base cards in everyone's deck, and it's the culture one. That's what reminded me of it.
Yeah.
And I had to look it up online. I'm not sure we ever figured it out, actually.
I think the answer was if the letters in O or OR are both capitalized, then it's a clean break. It could be cleaner. You could do better than that.
Absolutely.
It cannot be something something or something something, and then you do this. And I was doing it one way, or you sort of taught it to me, and I did the one thing, and you were like, hold on, show me that again. I'm like, yeah, do this, or I do this entire other thing, right? Like, no, I think it's one of these two. It's messy. You could clean that up easily.
Sure.
How did that get by? I'm guessing because it's a trickle down from Monumental. I'm guessing how that happened.
Probably so. And then one other thing I would mention is be prepared for very small tokens. I think that for me, it's okay because it gives me this box size. Sure. I wouldn't trade
Was
bigger
there
tokens.
wooden tokens in Monumental? I feel like the resources were wooden. Maybe that's just me remembering it incorrectly.
No, I don't believe so.
You handle the tokens a lot. I almost would rather they be wooden, even if they were just discs, red and blue discs.
I can see that.
I might
sure.
replace them. I'm not sure.
But yeah, price point and box size, I think I'm okay with the little.
And that's
cups.
the end of the thing. You said it. You think it'd be more interesting to have the lands out there, and I agree a little bit on that, but not enough.
Okay.
The Monumental box is huge. It's a underworking to set up. This is a decent amount of setup. There's a lot of stuff in here.
Yeah.
But for me, this completely replaces Monumental. I don't want to play that big game anymore. And we had the miniatures painted.
Yeah.
But it looks big. It takes a long time. I said in the past, I think I would never play it with more than two. And now it is a two-player game.
Yeah.
And this is the base game. Now, if I was buying these, I would get the exploration and trade. They're both really good. The espionage is the one the only reason I would get it is because I would want the 3 more factions.
Yeah, civilizations, yeah.
And I don't even hate the espionage part. It's just that I don't need to take that in this kind of game necessarily. But I like this game a lot. It's a fun deck builder. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's interesting. I feel like I'm making fun, meaty choices throughout the whole game, so I'm giving it an 8.5.
I'm giving it an 8. I'm very close. And I agree with you. Yes, it does feel engaging. There are a lot of interesting things. The factions are engaging. They are those few culture cards that's really kind of the meat and potatoes of what you're doing on your side. And then, of course, buying cards, putting it on top of your deck, like you said, that's a really clean way to do that. I love that I'm not throwing it in the discard and waiting for it to cycle. I'm going to get that soon. I know it's coming. You even have the ability sometimes to trigger the top card of your deck, right? That's one of the built-in abilities. Spend 2 scions or whatever, boom. I know what it is because I just bought it.
Right.
I love that. So, yeah, I like it. Again, I haven't played Monumental, but you guys are certainly selling me on this one just being its new form. So,
Yeah.
I guess that's that. Monumental Duel gets an 8 from me.
And I'm at an 8.5 with you, Tom. I think it boils down to the point you made, which is that I don't ever want to play Monumental at more than 2. It's just too long. And this is a shorter version of the 2-player game of Monumental, quite honestly, and it gives me everything that I'm looking for out of that game, except for the big toy factor, right? There is something that's great about having those all set up, and it looks amazing because the minis in Monumental are very good. But if I want the core game and I want to get it done in a reasonable amount of time, it's going to be one of these 3 because it's very much that experience in a fraction of the time, even a fraction of the time of the 2-player game of Monumental. So 8.5, very, very, very good game.
Well, there you go, folks. That's Monumental Duel. I'm Tom Vasil.
I'm Z Garcia.
I'm Mike DeLisio.
Go forth and trade.
Or explore.
Or do this other thing.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you like this review or whatever you just watched, wasn't it amazing? Check out our channel, Dice Tower We have all kinds of things. We review games, we do top 10s, we play games live. It's all about board games, but especially the people who play them. Check out Dice Tower YouTube channel.